As NBA fans, we are currently in an era where we're being spoiled by our older players. A lot of the guys who are past their agreed upon prime years are coming out and going, this is still our league, and competing at the highest level. Guys like LeBron, KD, and Steph Curry look like they haven't even missed a beat in their aging days. But there's some players who we cannot say the same about, and it's looking like the age is really catching up to them, and they're starting to fall off and decline in their talent and skill. Whether that be because their legs aren't under them, or maybe they just haven't been looking that good, and this has been a trend for a couple of years. There's a couple guys who are getting up there in age who are definitely falling off a little bit, and I wanted to talk about those guys today. What's goody? It's your host J Rose, as always, and hit the sub button, man. 90% of the people who watch my content are not subscribed, so if you mess with the videos, please hit the sub button. I would appreciate it a lot. But let's get into it. I want to put out a trigger warning because I'm probably going to talk about somebody's favorite player. You're going to be mad, alright? The first player that I want to talk about is Kawhi Leonard, and I know a lot of people are going to be upset about this take, calling him a player that's declining, but honestly, from what I'm watching and from a pattern that I've been seeing the past couple of years, I can only say that Kawhi is declining for a couple of reasons. I'm going to start off with how he's been playing this season. If you've watched Kawhi, he doesn't really look like he has any energy at all. He looks like his legs are completely not under him, especially after playing back-to-backs. He looks terrible. It looks like those injuries definitely are starting to catch up to him. It looks like the load managing is definitely starting to catch up to him, and he doesn't really have that same push in his step anymore. Now, is it unfair to judge a player after 16 games? Absolutely. Is it unfair to judge Kawhi Leonard on his regular season play? Absolutely. But you cannot tell me that after watching Kawhi go into playoffs and only play a certain amount of games, he can never finish out the playoffs. He's always going to get hurt, and he always has gotten hurt in the past couple of years, especially in this Clipper tenure. And then watch him go into the regular season and underperform. You can't tell me that that doesn't look like he's declining. Overall, it just doesn't look like Kawhi Leonard has that same spring in his step. We were calling him a top 5 player 2-3 years ago, and I'm not really sure where he ranks at this point in time. Only averaging 21 points on some of the worst efficiency he's shot ever in his career. It actually is the lowest field goal percentage he's ever shot at 45%. It's a very, very bad start to the season for him. And could it just be a bad start? Absolutely. But from what I'm seeing, the eye test is telling me he's not really up there right now. And the stats are also telling me he's not really up there right now. I think Kawhi Leonard, we should definitely keep an eye on that guy. And I'm ready to have these conversations about him not being one of those upper echelon players anymore, because he's just not looking like it right now. Kawhi Leonard is supposed to be the leader of that Clipper roster, and he just hasn't been that so far. He's supposed to be the best player, and being that the Clippers team looks kind of suspect to start the year off, they really do need him to be that guy. They've had losses to the Grizzlies. They just lost to the Nuggets. They let DeAndre Jordan get 21 and 13 on them. I didn't even think DeAndre Jordan would get into an NBA game again. Never mind drop a double-double on a super team. What's going on, LA? But that being said, Kawhi Leonard is supposed to be that guy. He's supposed to be that leader. He's supposed to be that superstar on that roster. He hasn't lived up to the billing so far this season. That's very apparent, and that's very much true. The best player on that team so far has been Paul George. So I'm just saying, Kawhi Leonard gonna need to do better. I'm 100% sure that most people are actually going to agree with this take more than they're going to agree with the Kawhi take. And this next player that I think is declining is Klay Thompson. And honestly, I feel like the writing's been on the wall for Klay, especially after those injuries. He's a player that's also aging. Klay Thompson is not a young soul anymore. Klay Thompson is 33 years old. So after suffering an ACL tear and an Achilles tear, I'm not expecting you to have that same spring in your step. However, the last 2 years, he didn't really look half bad, but to the start of this season, Klay Thompson looks absolutely terrible. He looks super slow. His defense isn't really there anymore. His legs also don't look like they're under him, and he's shooting very poorly for his standards. Klay Thompson right now is averaging 15 points on 36% from 3 and 40% from the field. So not only is he not making his threes, he's not really making anything else either. And when you compare him to other role players in the league right now, and you compare the amount of money that they're making, it's kind of ridiculous. Especially because Klay Thompson, coming into this season, said he wanted a max contract when the season was over, and this is nowhere near max contract level of play. So if the Warriors would even think about giving him a max contract if he continues to play this poorly, it would clearly be off a legacy and not based on how he's playing right now. If you look at a guy like Eric Gordon, he's averaging the same amount of points on far better efficiency, shooting 47% from the field and 40% from three. Those are the numbers that I would expect Klay Thompson to be shooting on a higher number of points, but he's just not looking like that guy this season. The Warriors are also struggling out the gate. They're under 500. So I think Klay Thompson definitely should be on the radar for guys who are declining, and I don't really think there's going to be too much pushback from a lot of people. This next player might get some people mad. I think we're re-entering that territory. Bradley Beal. Now, Bradley Beal is a guy who I thought was on the decline for a couple of years, not only due to his injury history like the last two guys, but also due to the fact that he's really just not scoring at the same clip that he was scoring at a couple of years ago. He won a scoring title, or he didn't win it, he was close to winning it, but he was up over 30 points per game for 2 seasons, and then he's dropped from 30 to 23, and now he's down at 17. Damn! He dropped from 30, and then he had 23 2 seasons in a row. Now he's down to 17 points per game on some really bad efficiency. And you could tell me, oh, but he's hurt. That does not make it any better. That doesn't make it any better at all, because if you know how I approach these players, if you can't stay on the court, your value drops immensely, especially on a team that's playing pretty well right now. The Phoenix Suns are, the 3rd seed in the West? So I really believe that if they would have traded Chris Paul for something else instead of trying to make a super team or a super team, they would be in a much better position right now. Bradley Beal isn't playing games, and when he is playing games, he doesn't really look too good either. This season only shooting 39% from the field and 33% from three. That's putrid. I'm not really seeing the vision with this Bradley Beal trade. I didn't see the vision when it happened. I kind of predicted that he was gonna be hurt, and here we are. So I'm not really too convinced that Bradley Beal was the piece that the Phoenix Suns needed. He looks like he's declining. His health is declining. The points and the efficiency is also declining. The eye test is telling me he's really not that great of a player at this point in time. So I don't really feel like there should be a lot of pushback for Bradley Beal either, but I know there's a lot of people that love Bradley Beal. They love their bucket getters. Us NBA fans love our bucket getters, but Bradley Beal, I just don't, and I never thought he was that guy. If we're being completely honest, if Bradley Beal is shooting super inefficiently for you and he's not giving you a lot of points, he's not going to really be giving you too much else. So I'm not really convinced that Bradley Beal is the piece they needed, and I really do think he is declining. This last player is definitely going to be hard to tell if he's declining or not, because he definitely has these up and downs in his career where he'll go as high up as 27 and then as far down as 21. And right now he's on one of those lows where he's averaging 21 points per game, and that player is DeMar DeRozan. And as we all know, the Chicago Bulls look putrid right now. They suck. The Bulls don't really have much hope in making the playoffs this season, and I do believe that they should blow it up and trade their pieces. They have a lot of pieces that could be good on other teams, including DeMar DeRozan, but I don't think he's a first or second option on the team at this point in time. I think that the Bulls really should blow that situation up. But just speaking on DeMar, he's averaging 21 points per game. His first season in Chicago, he averaged 27. Second season, he averaged 24. Now he's averaging 21. We're seeing a steady decline in the points, which I think is weird. He averaged a low in San Antonio, but that was more because of the system. You have to play like Pop wants you to play. Here, he kind of has free realm to do whatever he wants. He can score how he wants, and he's been doing that the last 2 seasons. This season, he doesn't look as confident in his play. He doesn't look like he can get to his spots as easily as he used to be able to. I remember one specific game, he had a chance for a game winner, and he took the most boneheaded shot because he just couldn't get to his spots. And I feel like that's a common theme with a lot of these players. It's very clear that they're losing a lot of their first step. They're losing some of that speed, and the younger guys are just taking over at this point. For DeMar, he's actually shooting a career high from 3, which is 36%, but from the field, he's only shooting 44%. Which honestly is not out of the ordinary for some of the years in his career, but even those years, I feel like his volume was a lot higher, so the scoring was a lot higher. He didn't look as slow, he didn't look as bad. And like I said, it could just be a slow start to the season for DeMar, but I really don't think that's the case. A lot of these players look older, they look slower, and that definitely is the case for DeMar DeRozan as well. Honestly, if you have any other players that you think are declining, or if you disagree with me, put that in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It'll help the channel out a lot, and I would appreciate it. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.